Welcome to the June 2023 Business Insights online network interview. This month, Pete Allison will be chairing a Q&A debate. So over to Pete for the details.
Brilliant. Thanks, Guy, and welcome to Jess Brewster and Albert Gironi. For those of you who saw Albert arrive into the room literally just as we were going live, Albert's based in Ghana. We'll hear more of that in a minute, but as is always the way when we talk to Africa, internet connections can come and go a little bit. So I thought we were going to have a very interesting and quite deep conversation with Jess there for a minute, but Albert is back with us, and so that's wonderful. I run Business Insights, and we're looking today at the arts, which is a long-term passion of mine, coming originally from the arts in the world of touring shows and the like. We now run business shows live and online across the UK and wider. And one of the things that in the last 10 years has become really clear to me is how important the arts are in business. It's not always very obvious, but if you think that innovation is a very important thing in the world of business, innovation only happens when you inject creative thinking. Where does the creativity come from? Can you teach creativity in a business? Great question was a good while ago. And of course, that comes from the culture that comes out of the arts and creative thinking. So it's a great opportunity to talk to two really interesting people from the world of art. I'm going to invite Albert to introduce yourself first. Tell us who you are, what you do, and then we'll go to Jess, and then we've got a few questions that we have thought about a little bit ahead. It's not going to be completely random. We'll go from there. Albert, over to you.
Well, okay, so my name is Albert Gironi, as you've already heard my name, and thanks, Pete, that's my name. I'm Gironi, and I'm in Ghana. To enjoy Ghana, you can't leave Ghana without having the much experiences in our weather. Well, what I do in Ghana is, as a young boy, I run as a philanthropist, and I'm also a financial advisor and an inspirational therapist, where I help people come out with their inspirational problems, their inspirational troubles, whatever the worries they are facing with, I help them sort it out. If you have a big problem, thinking about giving up in life, just don't worry. Hit up on Gironi's call, and I'm gonna help you be a lifesaver about the game. And what I do again as a philanthropist also is I do have a charity foundation called the Thunder Dancers Foundation. It consists of these 20 kids, and I bet you these kids are best dancers. They're awesome dancers, and we have more coming our way. So, hey, this is all about me, Marvin Gironi.
Brilliant. And using dance and the arts in the streets to help those kids, it's just great. Jess, over to you to introduce yourself.
So Jess, I am director of the Roses, which is an arts centre in Tewkesbury, which is the kind of centre of North Gloucestershire. I'm also the chair of the North Gloucestershire Cultural Consortium and creative director of a new festival that's developing in the area called Two Rivers. Tewkesbury is called that because Tewkesbury is the place where the Severn and the Avon, two major rivers in the UK, converge. And out of that is born lots of amazing history that includes some very famous kings and queens from the past. We do everything. We're a cinema, we're a theatre, we are a dance centre, we show a lot of music, and we do a whole range of community events across the county that help people be creative and think creatively.
Brilliant, lovely. And for those of you not in the UK, if you ever want to Google Tewkesbury in Gloucestershire and then go to Street View, you'll see it's full of period piece Tudor setting buildings. It's a classic English historic town, and as such is a real contrast to Accra in Ghana, where Albert's based. So very, very contrasting town, very contrasting continent, but working in the communities in which you're based to great effect. So let's stay with Jess as we're with you. Just talk to us a little bit about the work that the Roses does in that community there in Tewkesbury where you are.
So it's quite a diverse set of activities really, but it tends to be we work in two ways. We work across age, I guess, and there'll be different things for different age groups. We'll also work again over, for want of a better term, which is probably not the right term to use anymore, but class or income brackets. So There are some areas of deprivation in the Tewkesbury area and around the edge of Gloucester, which is the major city in the whole county. And we run youth, a youth performance group, a youth film programming group, and we engage with schools in that to try and draw people in. We'll also work with community groups that aren't involved in the arts, and this is really important, and it sounds like this is where Albert's kind of skill set really crosses over. Like, he's obviously not necessarily working in the arts centrally, but really understanding people's issues. We work with groups who do really understand people's issues, which is not always people in the arts, and there's a group called Young Gloucestershire who have street teams, which sounds where there starts to be a crossover between what we and Albert do, who quite literally will go out on the streets and start to engage young people, particularly in deprived areas, and try and engage them. And then we bring in the activities to kind of support that engagement. So that's one strand. We do a lot around isolation and ageing, which is a big problem in the area, particularly around health. I think it's becoming better known now, and we're starting to do a lot. I don't know if you've all heard of social prescribing, which is when the NHS or our National Health Service here is starting to prescribe non-health or medicine-based, what's the word? I want to say medicines, but you know, they're telling people to go around, is prescribing walks around nature reserves with regular groups. So we're starting to do some of that work as well. And some of that's really obvious. So like there's a knitting group, there's a bingo group. So it's not even necessarily directly creative, which is huge. We have a whole range of choirs which are designed in slightly different ways for slightly different people. Singing is an amazing, singing and dance and using your body is an amazing way for people to connect with their creativity, but also to connect with themselves. So we do singing for well-being for people who are suffering from mental health issues. We've got a lung health singing group, and that's from everybody who, you know, people experiencing lung cancer, COPD, just other breathing issues come along to that and are able to find their voices. That's just an example of some of the stuff we do.
And that of course is in addition to being a fundamental theatre, you know, with an auditorium and a stage, and sit in a provincial town, you know, which obviously is, you can have a debate whether it's a core function or not, because everything you said there is really, really important. But,
yeah, well, interestingly, I'm just in the process of doing a business restructure where that becomes less important for a whole range of reasons, or not less important, but we are equalising the other, the kind of strands to build that up, because, yeah, we're really, we could arguably be called a creative community centre.
Yeah.
More than we're not really a theatre. We don't actually do that much drama.
Brilliant. And so, Albert, a lot of what Jess has said there is going to resonate with you, just in a hugely different setting. And I have to say, we've not had it yet today, but I look after dogs from the house here every now and again. And every now and again, the world goes ballistic. So it's only barking. I'll apologise in advance for that. But it is just rather wonderful to hear the cock crowing in the background of Albert's call as well. Okay, Albert, so just in your situation, obviously you're hearing what Jess is doing and you're using that arts, creative, dance into the culture. How does that work for you in Accra? I always want to say Accra, that's me getting it wrong. In Accra, how does that work for you?
Exactly, you're mentioning it correctly. That's Accra. So as a founder and supervisor of Thunder Dancers Foundation, I am proud to be part of this remarkable charitable organization that is committed to transforming the lives of both the talented and the untalented children who face homelessness, with our primary goal of educating the illiterate and combating the unemployment in Ghana. Our foundation strives to make a tangible difference in the lives of these children who would otherwise be deprived of education and a brighter future. Currently, our foundation serves as a nurturing home for over 20 children and 2 parents who possess exceptional dancing skills, but they lack a stable living situation. So we provide them with the platform to develop their dancing abilities, while we also ensure that they have access to quality education. We also have an apartment we rent for them, and we offer them a safe and secure shelter.
Pete, you're muted, sorry.
Well done. That's because I was worried the dogs were going to kick off because I've been talking about it. Staying with you there for a minute, Albert. Clearly, funding, financing for what you do. I mean, and we're going to come to Jess with the same question in a minute, but it's going to be a very different context of the answer. But I'm absolutely sure the actual answer itself will be very similar. It's difficult. So how do you go about the funding of what you're doing, and how does that work, and what do you need? And yeah, you can see where that's going. How do you make of that, Albert?
So how we make it is in our cultural community settings, what we do as Standard Dancers Foundation, we are dedicated to engaging in diverse range of individuals as our audience, our performers and supporters. So we strive to reach our community members and also the local residents. We meet some family relatives, that is my brothers and sisters who are also sponsoring, the chiefs in the town who's also part of the sponsorship. And we also have individuals who have interest in the art and the cultural events and the social causes. So in order to get all of these people, we apply some following strategies such as community partnership, where we actively collaborate with local schools and community centers and other organizations to establish some partnership, unique partnership among us. We also regularly attend and organize a public performance event that are open to everyone. And I tell you, these showcases, it doesn't only open a platform for us, but it opens a portal for others who are not part of the organizations. We also have doors for the volunteering and membership and opportunities where others dedicate to come and train the kids for free. And others also come in as counselors, others also come in as other educational advisors that they come in to advise these kids, educate the kids that we have, because they know that we are doing this to help the society. So they also come in to help us.
So you've got personal input funding, you've got performance-based, I'm going to charge you to come and watch a show. And do you get much business funding, or is that something you're exploring at the moment?
Yeah, we do get much business funding. When we started, we used to get much business funding through events we used to attend. We used to attend most events in the nation, and we also attend most events in the regions that help us. So we used to get much funding through that one, and also we have funds from the sponsorships that we used to get when we started.
And does government funding sit into this at all, or is that not a thing that happens there?
Apparently in Ghana, it's very difficult to have the government sponsoring your foundation. And one research I made in Ghana here is Ghana has only 25 NGOs, and all of these NGOs are private NGOs that the government doesn't sponsor. Even I tried talking to some of the private NGOs, and they find it difficult to even get to me because they are difficult themselves. So the government does nothing when it comes to running an NGO.
So Jess, how does the Roses in Tewkesbury, obviously again, it's very different culture. How does your funding model work across the various routes that you have?
Doesn't sound that different, actually. So we don't get any government funding, and although the arts does definitely get government funding here, it's dropping continually and becoming consistently more difficult, and there is no local authority funding anymore at all. And it always, I was ranting to Pete about this the other day, or the group I was in. I think one of the big things that surprises people who come to our theatre regularly, we've been doing really well in terms of live since COVID. We kind of opened up after the COVID pandemic, in that we've been at 92% capacity, which is actually slightly better than we were doing before. But even if we sold out every single live show, we would still make nowhere near, and I'm talking nowhere near, the amount we need to cover our expenditure to actually put on those shows. So, I mean, the arts is just a terrible business model, which is why, there's a big, we do need to think of ourselves differently, and we need to be constantly innovating business models. But so we obviously do get a lot from ticket sales, but we do rely a lot on our supporters and our funders, and they're really made up of grants that we can apply for here, and I have got a feeling that we probably have more range than you do, Al, but I don't know if you have any kind of grants or trusts funding structure in Ghana, but even that's not that big. So we really rely on our donors, and then what I'll call ancillary income, which again sounds very similar to Albert. So food and drink is really important. Other ways of selling stuff around the shows that come in. and then working with partners to bring in other forms of income from elsewhere.
Brilliant. And as you say, it's quite remarkable when you actually start looking at these things, how similar the actual challenges and the funding opportunities are in such different cultural situations. It's quite remarkable.
Absolutely. And I think I said to you, it's not like, and we're obviously a kind of smaller regional theatre, but if you look at the National Theatre of the UK, the kind of biggest theatre in the whole country, they have a turnover of 80 million, but their ticket sales are only 17 million of that. And the art that that's put on to sell those tickets costs 27 million. So the rest of the funding also comes from elsewhere. So it's not, we're kind of not unusual. And it's interesting, when I got to the theatre, it was slightly disconnected. And there's another slight issue with the arts, is sometimes it's disconnected from itself. It was kind of bringing people to feel okay about that, you know, if the National does it and the Royal Shakespeare Company work on that same model, and it doesn't matter whether you have this kind of established venue-based business or you're doing amazing work like Albert is. We need that net of support under us to deliver it. It needs a whole range of people behind it that aren't arts-based to help deliver it.
So, having looked at it, looked at the model, and looked at what your objectives are, as we look at it now, what would you say your greatest impact is in the space that you're in Tewkesbury or in Accra? Albert, you go with that. What is the actual impact that you're having, that you're seeing, that's making you smile, making you want to go on? What is it that gives you the sense of we're doing something useful here?
The largest impact that Thunder Dancers Foundation has made so far in the community where we work with is by transforming the lives of the unemployed, the lives of the hopeless and homeless kids, into empowering them, and also giving them education, and them not adapting the illicit behaviors that is abruptly moving on in Ghana here, Accra here. We see the kids advancing from that, and it's a great impact that we are having. Even the chief acknowledged what we are doing here, because he has noticed ever since we were able to have these 20 kids under ours, he's noticed the changes in the kids, unlike those that we are not having in our foundation.
And I think that's absolutely brilliant. And I think those of us based here in the UK, and I can't speak so much for those of us maybe in the States, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same, in that as you look at the city centres and then, you know, here in the UK we have, you know, the economic situation isn't great in our terms, and cuts in funding go on, and you see it actually in disturbance on the streets. And actually, I think anybody involved in the arts can relate to what you're saying, that the arts, whether it's music or dance or whatever, has a real power to give somebody a focus and a drive. Jess, what's your take on that? Your impact there in Tewkesbury. What's your greatest, happiest impact of what you're doing?
Again, it's nowhere near as specific as what Albert's doing, but there's a similarity there again, which is it's, I guess, connecting people with their community and connecting people with themselves, and with that improving their lives on a kind of daily basis, sometimes on a weekly basis. And that, I mean, because we're a venue and because we have a program, sometimes that's just providing joy every so often and a bit of an escapism. But more often than not, it's becoming about people having a kind of creative home where they're able to build confidence and kind of reconnect with themselves. I really think that's the main thing with culture. And it doesn't matter if it's high culture that's super profound and gets you, you know, thinking, or it's just pure, brilliant, superficial escapism. It takes you out of yourself, so you're able to kind of come back and know yourself a bit better afterwards. Whether that's having a break from yourself or really thinking about who you are. So that's absolutely the impact we have, I guess, on a local basis where we are as a community resource for the size of town. We're only 15,000 people in Tewkesbury town. It's an incredible community resource for that size town, that it does kind of give the town a bit of scale it wouldn't have otherwise. There's a morale boost there. There's a kind of pride there that we bring, that the venue brings with it as well.
It's great to see Chennai just popping in the chat box there, that you're very much seeing the same thing in the States. And we will, when we get to the end of this chat, we'll just have a few minutes to let people share and have thoughts and what have you. One of the things I observe, and it is both you know, I can hear it coming through what both of you are doing, you know, working in any art situation, actually it's any team situation, it will bring with it engagement, it will bring with it relationships, and the human being is by nature an animal that works on relationships and being in networks, being in families. And actually, if we create isolation, then people will, you know, the issues will come. But what the arts does, amongst many other things, is puts people together in groups and does things and creates the creativity and gives a common purpose. And actually, I would observe that team energy is part of what can then be channeled and used and move forward. That's brilliant. Okay, so listen, it's been a really tough few years. COVID pandemic, there you go. And you can see what's coming now. You know, the arts has not exactly had it easy. I left doing active festival work when the COVID pandemic hit. I'm quite pleased about that, but I've got a lot of friends, a lot of friends both on the production side who produce live events, but also in the supply chain. And for a lot of the actual events, the festivals, the gigs that people recognize and see, there was an opportunity to get support groups going and what have you. But then a lot of the supply chain just hit a brick wall in March 2020 and could do very little else. How did you guys deal with the years of the COVID pandemic? Albert, do you want to take that? Because most of us on the screen will relate to how that's happened in sort of Western culture, not that Ghana isn't Western way, but we're not so familiar with what was going on in Africa, I suspect. So, Albert, how did you deal with the COVID years?
You know, unfortunately for our foundation, the organization that was established shortly before the onset of the pandemic. We started the foundation some few months later, the pandemic. So it hit us at a great impact. It had a great impact on us due to subsequent lockdown measures that our government agreed on. And our foundation also, because it's a charity and a dancing foundation, it's focused on raising our income on organizations that we need to attend. But there's a lockdown. You can't be hosting any organization. That had a greater impact, a great side effect on us starting a new foundation to help people, and you hit with such breeze. But there is this one thing that happened. Our government always, once a month, he gives us the chance to just go out to either purchase or rejuvenate ourselves. We took advantage of it as a business person, you know, and whatever, anytime I go out there and I listen to business people shutting down what they do because something hit them up, I always tell them, as a business person, you should be ready for all weather. Anything that happens, just be ready for it. You can't be a business person, a successful business person where you can't survive anything. No. So we took advantage of this 1 month, 1 day release that our government released us. We take advantage of it where before the event, before the day reaches, we start to sell our tickets. We host events. We let people know that we'll be hosting this event during this day that the government will be releasing us. And it's amazing that on the day of the event, we have more people than even when we started the event because it was lockdown and you ain't going nowhere to enjoy. You ain't going nowhere to have fun. The only fun is to just come to Thunder Dances, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to give you the fun. We're going to give you that happy moment. So we had this great moment through that, and that helped us to, after the pandemic, we were able to be a little bit popular in Ghana, where we got the opportunity to start attending regional competitions aside after the pandemic, and also attending some competitions which is hosted on the TV channels in Ghana.
Brilliant. And what a great message there about business resilience. It's funny, we've got a thing about business resilience going on in the Bath, North East Somerset show in a couple of weeks' time. And up to this point, when people talk about business resilience, they tend to be thinking about financial robustness. And actually, you know, in the world that we live in now, where you look at mental health, you look about sustainable climate change, wars in Ukraine, just a million other things, we're actually running this thing and it's saying, so what is business resilience? And actually, Albert, you've just given a great example there of the resilience of basically take one day at a time. Don't try and overcook it. You know, there's a great message in there. And you're right, every business, you know, you need to be able to deal with those things when they come. So it's a great lesson. If you want to take the positives out of the pandemic, that's maybe one well-learned lesson. That's brilliant. Jess, what COVID, UK theatre land, it wasn't great. How did it for you?
Well, I'm probably going to give a slightly unusual answer here. It's interesting talking about business with resilience. The business I'd run up to, so I started full-time. I'd done a bit of work. I was on the board of the Roses Theatre. I started full-time in the job after getting invited into it because I'd been doing some work with them because their business was not in a good state when I got there. I started on the 1st of March 2020. UK went into lockdown. The government pretty much announced that COVID was coming at that point, and the UK went into lockdown on the 16th of March, and that's when we closed the theatre. But prior to that, I had run this slightly insane business where we work with property developers to take over empty spaces in city centres and turn them into art centres, and it was all over the place all the time. Like there was one point, because of business rates and council pressure, we were like £400,000 in debt on our books, and I had learned to negotiate, and I got out of it. I kind of learned in that process, it was extremely stressful at the time, that I could negotiate out of anything. So COVID hit, but I came out of that business quite exhausted. I'm still going, which is great. It's a kind of one of those resilient, always on break-even arts organisations, like so many are, I think, across the world. It's interesting you say in the US, Sinead. My parents are based in the US, and it sounds so similar. But in the UK, we were, I guess, in some ways very blessed in that after a short period where it was just like, well, everybody's going under. It wasn't just the arts. Like, how are we supposed to afford our staff? Like, business just ground to a halt. We were in exactly the same position. We then started to get support. And I guess we used the space, again, it's slightly different context, but we used the space we had. You know, this was a business in difficulty when I got there, it gave us space, and we had the furlough scheme in the UK, which covered salaries. And then in October that year, the government introduced the Culture Recovery Scheme, which gave core funding to cultural venues specifically, to kind of just, you know, keep the doors closed, for want of a better word, but, you know, pay for the electricity, pay for your basic costs, and just make sure that the business sustains through a time of total closure. Obviously, by that point, other people had managed to open up. But yeah, I think I've got quite an unusual answer in that there were many, many benefits for particularly for my organisation, but I know other cultural businesses at the time, because of the government support we got, because of the space and the kind of just time and space to think a little bit more creatively with around the business models, and actually just to give the building a rest. What's really interesting about theatre venues is we run 7 days a week, 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. And it means you're never able to get your staff in the room at the same time, because there's always somebody working. So it's not like you can go away for the weekend with your staff to do a team day, because often that's your busiest period. So we had this moment that we used. So I know that's quite an unusual answer, I think, because everybody wants to be like, oh no, it was really hard. There was one area where it was very, very, very difficult, and that was for our freelancers and our freelance colleagues who had no support given to them. So a lot of the work we did in that time was around trying to get money through to them. So we did online classes, we got workshops going. There was actually, it was very much about our community, but a lot of it was about supporting local freelancers and trying to get some cash to them. So yeah, probably
But it's another story about pivoting business and innovation, which, as you rightly said of yourself a minute ago, it's not just about the arts by a very long margin, but it is a commonplace story from business through that period. So listen, a separate question for a change for each of you, just for a moment. Staying with you for a second. Of course, the UK theatre land and the Roses, particularly in Gloucestershire, is very famous and probably best known in the general place for the famous Christmas pantomime. And forgive me, those not in the UK who have no idea what we're talking about there, look it up, you'll not understand it at all. But how important is the pantomime to the Roses against everything else that we've been talking about this morning?
So very quickly for international audiences, if you just Google pantomime, it's a slightly crazy, very structured show that has some very stupid, silly stuff in it. that
Oh no, it isn't.
yes, oh yeah, so that you, oh yes it is. There's lots of interaction with the audience. It's based on clowning, for want of a better word. You can look up some examples on YouTube. In fact, for those of you in the States, there's a couple of good YouTubers who watch live streams of pantos and just comment on them. But it's in the UK, in the theatre business, outside of London, the kind of London major theatres, in some cases, including the London major theatres, it is normally between 25% and 40% of the average theatre's annual turnover. So in 1 month flat, you make the majority of your turnover. So it's so important to us, and it's so important to us in more than just financially. It makes about 25% of ours. So we're kind of down the bottom end, but it makes about 25% of our turnover. But it's also, more often than not, one of the first bits of theatre children see. It kind of connects generations, so whole families go together, which again is quite unusual. Theatre's traditionally normally gone to by over 65-year-olds. Actually, it's not even skewed slightly younger. It's the core audience in most theatres is that high end of age group, and it's where you get kind of cross-generational. So it's just massively important to us.
And I've got 3 children who over the years as they've grown up, all taken part in the pantomimes, included, I have to say, the Roses.
Yes, and there's a way of the community getting involved and having professional experience as well. There's just so many elements to it.
Yeah, brilliant. And Albert, just a slightly different question for you, because I don't think you really have a big pantomime tradition over in Accra. But most of us won't really have a grip on the economic situation in Ghana. So do you want to just give us a bit of an overview of that economic situation that you're operating in?
You know, when I talk to people in Europe, like hearing more about the state, the economic situation, and people talk about, well, it's bad, it's not well now, it's striking out. I just look back, I look to Ghana, I get to the room and I look at myself in the mirror and I see myself in Ghana and I say, whoa, you're complaining out there about your economic situation, then we are in hell in Ghana here, because in Ghana we are suffering from economic situation where we are experiencing the severe challenges, which is characterized by inflation, high rates of tax, poor marketing, significant increase in number of unemployed graduates, where even the average pay of a skilled worker is $70 monthly. Others even receive less. So when I listen to people, Ghana is really experiencing it bad. And even concerning the unemployed graduate, ever since I made research about the awareness of unemployment in the system, I try to warn the graduates especially, because you are going to graduate from school, you don't know what's going to happen next in the next world, whether you're going to find a job or not. I try to warn them. And the truth is, now Ghana's unemployed graduate is going to pour to over 99% of unemployed graduates. At first it was 90, but now it will be 99 because the government has shut down the gates of unemployed graduates to 3 years. They earn no more employment at the government sector for 3 years. And this is very bad. So Ghana's current economic situation back then and now, it's worse.
Yeah.
It's very bad.
Yeah, and it's just such a different space to be working in economically. I can see that from what most of us are used to. So I'm going to roll last 2 questions sort of into one, because we're fighting time a little bit, and it's been a really fascinating discussion. But we always do this to Jill. She's very good. We always cramp her out of the challenge space. But a couple of things that I'll just ask both of you to just comment on, and then we'll just try and squeeze in a couple of minutes if anyone's got any questions. First of all, we've all been dealing globally with our own impact areas caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So I'm just interested, I suspect that's going to be quite different about how that's impacted your individual businesses and what you've been doing as a result of that. So I'd be really interested to hear your take on that. And then also, what does the future hold? You know, where does this all go for you now in the next coming years? So Jess, do you want to go first with those 2?
Sorry, I just cut out then on the first bit of that question. What's the impact of what, sorry?
So the first, rolling 2 questions into one.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've all been dealing with the function of Russia attacking Ukraine, and UK. We've seen a number of refugees come through. There's been a lot of activity going on, and a lot of that has been revolving around the arts and theatre space. And then going on from that, what does the future hold, and what are you excited about, and where does it all go for the next few years?
So in terms of Ukraine, we so in this area of the country, which is the West Country, there's lots of agriculture. So we've got quite a high population of Eastern European countries anyway, including the Ukraine, which has been quite interesting. And then we've had a lot of people take on Ukrainian refugees throughout the area. A couple of which have become volunteers, but we haven't kind of interacted that in a major way any more that we were kind of already doing stuff in that direction. So I guess I feel like I can't comment on that in any great detail. But in terms of the future, we're really going to, I kind of tend to work to scale or try and scale things up. And I think the Roses, regional theatre in the UK, often gets ignored from the big guys in cities, but actually it's where the majority of people go to the theatre. So we're really looking at how we get our message out there and get people understanding the business model more, and also how we then use that to reach more people across the area. And there's lots of exciting things happening. Tewkesbury is a really exciting area at the moment. Hopefully it's going to get renamed what it actually is, which is North Gloucestershire at some point soon, so rebranded. But we have the fastest growing population in the UK outside of London, and we have had for the last 10 years. We are a major hub, as I said already, for tech and engineering, and that's growing, and it's becoming a proper hub as well, in the sense that I don't think we're ever going to reach Silicon Valley levels of kind of tech hub area, but there is a possibility that we'll have the kind of UK version of that. And we really want to be taking those opportunities and building culture kind of into ways of thinking as that growth happens, and obviously connecting with those people as they come into the county. So yeah, lots of exciting developments.
Yeah, it'd be great to see the arts engage with culture and tech. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. Albert, what about yourself? Two bits of questions there. What's your take on those two?
All right, so the ongoing war in Ukraine has a great impact on our organization, because we have experienced a significant loss of foreign sponsors who previously recognized and supported our effort during events we attended to perform. And also our ability to locate events has even been severely hampered compared to before. Even when we do organize events, attendance has dwindled as people are unable to afford extra funds for tickets. And many of our sponsors and partners have also withdrawn their support from the foundation, adding to the challenges that we are facing. And this is a serious situation we are facing here, where we have now moved from sponsorship to requesting loan to survive the foundation. And it's very tough for us. But the future holds for the foundation is to have the aspiration to expand our reach and to support more children, and also showcase their talents on prestigious platforms such as America's Got Talent. I bet you that is my greatest dream for these kids, for them to perform on the platform. And however, our greatest challenge lies in the current economic situation that we are facing. Declining of sponsorship and also donors is also one of our greatest challenges. But despite this, the most exciting opportunity for us has emerged through this platform even today, where we've got the opportunity to spread news about Thunder dancers internationally. I bet you I never dreamt about Thunder dancers reaching such audience today. This is a great what we've done. And with this expertise, we do have one person whom we are aiming to do everything. The foundation has come to an agreement that it will be better we have somebody in one of our sponsors or one of our members to move to one of the European countries in order to help us, and that is Mr. Richie Bonsu. He's done very well. I just want to take this platform and congratulate him. He's on this platform, he's here with us. He's done very, very well with the organization, helping us locating events in Ghana here, using his experience as a marketing officer. He never gave up on us. He never gave up on me. At times I just look down and I say, bro, I want to shut down this foundation. And he tell me, no, I have this event for you here. get dressed and get packed up to go in here, and he takes us to this event. It's done so incredible for the foundation, and we are also willing to do all we can, because if we are able to get in one of the European countries, I bet you Richard is going to do all he can to get us to the America's Got Talent, which is our greatest dream. So
fantastic! What a shout out! And Richard, that's absolutely great. And I think just as a closing thought from me, and we'll just see if people have got questions. But I think, you know, this that we're on now, this meeting platform here, I'm not sure anyone's going to come up with any absolute black and white answers, but it's a great platform representing a lot of cross cultures to say, so how does that work? How can the UK, the US business environment sponsor the arts in different cultural situations? And not quite sure where that goes. It's a bit of an aspirational statement, that, but if anyone's got any bright ideas, then I'm sure we'd be loving to be involved in that. And Richard, if you do find yourself in and around the UK, we've got the live shows that we do here in the UK, and I would be very happy to do something based on that. And we do a show in Gloucestershire, which of course is where the Roses is based, and that's going to happen in February next year. So there you go. This could be recreated live on stage at the Gloucestershire Business Show in February next year. Anyway, enough from me. Look, does anyone have any questions, just in literally a couple of minutes before we hand off very briefly to Jill, that they want to ask? And Channai, I've got to really, we're all struggling over your day. We're going to get this sorted later, but the floor is yours first.
I just had sort of a thought because of what your statement that you said just a second ago. You know, how can the business communities in the US, in Africa, in the UK, like what could happen? And, you know, I think, Jess, you've mentioned a couple of times, like you've said the business case, you know, you talked a little bit about the art specifically. And I wonder if, you know, again, more of an aspirational thought, but are we in a space where we need to revise the arts business cases, like business, like techniques, so that then people like in tech, for example, get more intrigued, right? Like are willing to sort of hop on the boat to do that support.
100%, yeah. So I had quite an interesting conversation the other day, which I've been thinking about a lot, which is around ecosystems instead of industries.
Yeah.
And obviously arts and health are a really obvious one at the moment. And I would argue what Albert's doing is, yeah, like arts and social care, arts and development. Like how do we, you know, it feels like funding models at the moment are becoming at a point where they're not really fit for purpose for the needs are, which isn't, I don't really need help putting on a play. Some people do. But as a venue, yeah, there's something around innovating in that area, absolutely. But it's kind of right at the start of its thinking. And I think there's a real opportunity there, actually, you know, even for people like you to go, okay, where are all these connecting points, and then where's the business model under that can maybe support that and get money out and across. And yeah, and I think particularly, it's funny, Albert, everything you say, I'm already like, oh, there's a couple of people I know in the local area who work internationally who I know I can probably connect with you, who would probably not only give you money, but may actually give you some other resources as well.
Yes, I know you've got a rush, and I'm very aware of that.
Sorry,
no. Well, what I want to say before you literally just have to rush is to say I'm really happy for this platform to explore that a bit. Not quite sure what I mean by that, but I think we've got some good people on this platform. And we've got the Gloucestershire show in February. That's going to be a bit difficult for some of you who are on the other side of the planet, but if we can create some thinking and use it in Gloucestershire in February. But this platform, which is online, because we've got an awful lot of contacts in the arts world and people who I think would be quite interested in joining into this conversation. So I think any of you who'd like to be involved in that, just email. You've got emails from me and Jill and everyone.
Yeah.
Just let us know you'd like to be involved, and we'll see if we can put something together that allows a bit of space for that to develop. Jess, this will give you permission to disappear, but at the same breath, has anyone else got anything? I saw Nick, your hand was up there a second ago. Do you want to just fire away with anything? No, you need to be on. You need to be off mute, Nick.
Yeah, I just want to. I said, like I say, it's just been an interesting session, this one, and also the best bit about it was the positivity of both of the speakers, and it like I say, in our day-to-day lives, we're business, and trying to connect. Actually listening to that is inspiring and uplifting. And I've sat here and just thought, yeah, you know what? There is more to life than business. And it, from both of you, thank you very much for the positivity, particularly from my thing. Very interesting as well. Thank you.
Brilliant. And I think that comes, just for the rest of you who won't know this, and Nick comes from a position of having been, I think, in the Marines, haven't you? And then put everything down one day and said, I'm going to go and get involved in a business. So that's that same positivity coming out.
Oh yeah, I just want to quickly throw this one. It's 41 years ago since the ceasefire of the Falklands, where I was, and I was airborne, not Marine.
Oh, sorry, my mistake.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and this is what I'm saying about positivity. I mean, unfortunately, the world's an ugly place, and it's a beautiful place, and things go on. But as I say, both of you speakers this afternoon, thank you very much for the positivity and the input, and it just refreshes human nature from my perspective, because like I say, we all go out and chase business, and that's what business is about. But it's nice to have a complete change from selling or and actually listen to some interesting views. Thank you very much.
I'm going to say a big thank you because I do have to go. Nick, one of the best plays I've ever seen is called Minefield, and it was a documentary piece of theatre with 3 British soldiers and 3 Argentinian soldiers live on stage. Look it up. It was amazing. Thank you so
very much.
Thanks, Jess. Really appreciate it.
Lovely to meet you all. Bye.
Cheers, Jess. See you again. That's
Guy,
great.
I'm going to hand back to you because otherwise we're just going to completely blow everything.
No problem. It's no problem. I think there's a phrase that I'm really familiar with, that I love, called, if you don't fill your own cup first, you can't actually fill other people's. One of the ways I fill my own cup personally is by doing creative stuff. So for instance, it's a terrible picture, but that's me playing Baron von Strop in our village pantomime. We've got a village of 400 people playing Baron von Strop in the panto a few months ago. And I'm off to work at Glastonbury Festival next week as well, where you get the complete dichotomy of performance. You get every single part of the spectrum at Glastonbury, from Elton John, Guns N' Roses, Arctic Monkeys, through. You walk round the corner and you'll see 2 people with a couple of sticks making something creative out of it. And it's amazing. There's something for everyone. So I would inspire everyone to get involved in something creative, because it makes you feel creative in your business. I can't stress that high enough and strong enough. Great.